They came without warning. One moment Earth was ordinary, airplanes in the sky, people shouting into phones, dogs barking in suburban streets. The next, it cracked open with fire. Clouds turned black like bruised skin, and the stars blinked out behind colossal shapes descending from the atmosphere. The Empire had found Earth, not with curiosity or diplomacy, with firepower. They didn't ask questions. They didn't send diplomats. They vaporized Tokyo in 4 minutes and silenced Berlin right after. The broadcasts called it an invasion. But it wasn't. This wasn't a war of occupation. It was extermination. A clean sweep. One species making room for its own kind in the galaxy. The invaders weren't like the little green men from movies. They weren't even men. They were called the Aurochs Dominion, a race of cold-blooded, hive-minded conquerors who fed on the neural energy of intelligent species. Earth was a snack, not a threat. And yet they made a mistake. They thought humans would panic, scatter, and beg for mercy. Some did. Most didn't. Something old and ugly stirred inside the human spirit when the sky turned red. Something ancient, older than any government, any border, any god. It was the instinct not to go down easy. In New York, when the plasma cannons turned Times Square to ash, a girl named Alina Cruz pulled her wounded brother through the fire and found a rifle in the hand of a dead soldier. She hadn't fired a gun in her life. That night, she took out her first Aurochs with one shot between its blank, glassy eyes. In Nigeria, an old farmer named Kabiru smuggled children out of a burning refugee camp using an abandoned food truck and a bucket of blood to mask their scent. In Russia, a prisoner named Sidorov, jailed for war crimes, used broken chains to strangle an Aurochs soldier to death in the snows outside Novosibirsk. Humanity didn't fight with honor or coordination. It fought with fury, dirty, irrational, defiant fury. That was the thing the Empire didn't calculate. They'd destroyed species before, but none like this. None that fought even after their cities were gone. None that bit back when they were already bleeding out. The UN collapsed in days. Armies fragmented. Command structures fell apart. But pockets of resistance rose like tumors all over the planet. Civilians turned fighters. Criminals turned saviors. No one waited for orders. Earth became a battlefield ruled by chaos and vengeance. In the middle of it all was Captain Eli Voss, disgraced, discharged, forgotten. He used to be a leader in the Earth Coalition forces, back before the Aurochs came, court-martialed for punching a general who sold secrets to the wrong side. Now, he lived off-grid in a broken-down bunker deep in the Colorado Rockies, trying to drink himself into oblivion. But when the first Aurochs ship lit up Denver and the screams started echoing off the mountains, something inside him reawakened. Not patriotism, not duty, just raw, unfiltered hatred, the kind you can build an army on. Voss didn't rise with medals or speeches. He rose with blood on his fists, taking over a rogue militia of survivalists and outlaws who'd holed up in the woods. They called themselves Last Earth. Not much more than a suicide squad with stolen tech and buried trauma. But under Voss, they became a storm. And when the Aurochs realized humanity wasn't going to die quietly, they changed tactics. They sent a message, not to the governments, to Eli Voss. "We struck first," it said in perfect English. "But we offer a final option. Surrender now, become servants, or Earth will not survive the next wave." Voss didn't blink. He didn't wait. He sent one word back. "Try." The message went out, bouncing off hacked satellites, encoded into deep space frequencies they knew the Aurochs would intercept. Just one word. Try. To anyone else it looked like suicide, but to Voss, it was a declaration. You may be stronger, but we're human. We don't roll over. What he didn't know yet was that the Aurochs had already started their next wave. 3 moons hidden behind Saturn's shadow glowed red with activation energy. From those cloaked stations, more warships launched, bigger than the First Fleet. These weren't scouts. These were planetary erasers, the same kind that had hollowed out whole civilizations before Earth was even walking upright. But Earth wasn't just another target anymore. It had become a problem, an anomaly, a risk. The Aurochs hadn't expected resistance to last more than a week. Now it had been 2 months, and somehow, humans were still alive. Captain Voss had taken his militia underground. Literally. They'd carved out hidden tunnels below Cheyenne Mountain, beneath what used to be the NORAD facility. It wasn't safe, but it was a fortress with teeth. There, engineers rebuilt scrapped Aurochs tech into crude hybrid weapons, and medics turned scavenged pharmaceuticals into rough combat serums. Nothing fancy, nothing clean, just enough to keep them breathing. Alina Cruz had found her way there too. After hauling her brother from the wreckage of Manhattan, she'd crossed 3 states barefoot, dodging patrols, hiding in ditches, eating canned beans stolen from bombed-out convenience stores. Her brother didn't survive, but she did. And when she made it to the mountain, she didn't ask for sympathy. She asked for a weapon. Voss looked at her the way he looked at everyone who showed up at the gates, suspicious, silent, waiting for weakness. She didn't blink. He handed her a sidearm, said nothing, and turned back to the war maps. She never missed a shot. Meanwhile, across the ocean, the Aurochs were learning something they'd never had to consider before. Human unpredictability. They had studied humanity, files, patterns, behaviors, but the data failed them. How do you predict a soldier who smiles while charging a plasma cannon with nothing but a crowbar? How do you calculate the risk of a dying man rigging his own chest with explosives to take down a passing drone? How do you prepare for a 13-year-old hacking a crashed alien vessel using nothing but a salvaged laptop and YouTube tutorials downloaded before the sky fell? They called it chaotic deviation. In truth, it was madness born of desperation. In one destroyed sector of São Paulo, a group of human children had managed to lure an Aurochs patrol into an abandoned subway system rigged with gasoline and pressure triggers. 28 alien soldiers died screaming, their armor turned molten. The children wrote, "Welcome to Earth" in blood across the tunnel wall. The Empire watched. The Empire learned. They sent in their overlord next, Zocaral, an ancient war commander who had overseen the extinction of 12 lesser civilizations. Cold, mechanical, logical to the core. He saw Earth not as a battleground anymore, but a question mark. Why were humans still alive? When his ship entered orbit, Earth's magnetic field reacted violently. Tides shifted, weather patterns spun out of control. The aurora borealis appeared in the skies of Cairo. The air screamed. Voss felt it like a punch in the gut. Whatever was coming next, it was bigger than anything they'd faced. He turned to his second-in-command, a former Marine named Sal O'Reilly, who'd lost his legs in the first week and now ran battlefield strategy from a hover-rigged wheelchair. "Prep the nukes," Voss said. Sal frowned. "You planning on ending the world for them? Or for us?" "Does it matter?" Voss muttered. "They don't get to walk away. Not now." Alina was watching him, quiet. She wasn't sure if she'd just joined the last army on Earth or the last suicide cult. But then she heard it, buzzing through the old comm towers, a message broadcasted in a low, guttural tone. "Alien, but translated. You have resisted well. Anomaly detected. Earth is not what we calculated. We offer reconsideration. Surrender, and your species may be, studied. Preserved." Preserved? That word set Voss off. He picked up the nearest comm mic, stared into the cracked security cam screen. "You had your chance," he said coldly. "You struck first. You want to study us now? Here's your sample." He nodded to Sal. The signal went out. 20 minutes later, the first Aurochs mothership over North America exploded in a blinding flash. A stolen nuke, smuggled aboard by a kamikaze squad out of Detroit, reduced it to dust. The message was clear. Earth isn't surrendering, and we're just getting started. They weren't ready for the retaliation. The Aurochs had calculated Earth's nuclear capability. Old, limited, mostly buried under politics and rust. But what they hadn't predicted was how quickly humans would turn desperation into innovation. Within a month of first contact, rogue nations, warlords, and militia cells had unsealed silos once thought inoperable, reprogrammed launch codes with the help of AIs salvaged from corporate vaults, and aimed everything at the sky. That first mothership was only the beginning. 3 more burned within the next 72 hours. One detonated mid-descent over the Indian Ocean, its wreckage blackening the water for miles. Another was lured into the Himalayas and brought down by a fusion of outdated surface-to-air missiles and repurposed mining lasers. The third, detonated in low orbit by a suicide shuttle loaded with stolen warheads, blotted out the sun over Europe for 2 days. The Aurochs were starting to bleed, but Earth was bleeding worse. Half the population was gone. Major cities were rubble, poisoned, or crawling with parasites left behind by the retreating Aurochs forces. The sky never returned to its proper color. Ash and static floated in the air like a disease. Food was a memory. Water was rationed. Every child was born into a world where the stars weren't dreams anymore. They were threats. Deep in the Cheyenne bunker, Voss paced before the flickering war table, his skin grayer than usual, his eyes sunken. Sleep had become a luxury he couldn't afford. Every morning came with a new message from a resistance cell, some hopeful, most horrifying. One group in France reported children going blind from radiation poisoning. Another in South Africa sent a garbled feed showing people worshipping a crashed Aurochs machine like a god. Desperation was mutating. Humanity was fracturing at the seams. "We're winning," Sal muttered beside him, staring blankly at the feed from above Earth's orbit. "Winning?" Voss snapped. "We're surviving. There's a difference." "But we're still here." "Not for long if we keep playing their game." That's when Alina spoke up from across the room. Her voice was quiet but sharp, like a scalpel. "Then change the game." Everyone turned. "What?" Voss asked. "You said we're fighting like rats in a cage," she said, stepping forward. "So stop acting like we're trapped. You've been reacting this whole time, waiting for them to strike. What if we go up?" There was silence. No one moved. She continued. "We've shot down 3 of their ships. We have debris, technology power cores, navigation logs. We have their language, their frequencies. We even have one of their pilots. What's stopping us from turning the cage inside out?" Voss stared at her, and slowly, something in his expression shifted. Sal raised an eyebrow. "You saying we build a ship?" "No," Alina said. "I'm saying we steal one." It was insane, suicidal. But it was also the only thing that made sense. They had pieces, scavenged hulls, plasma emitters half rebuilt by genius kids from Seoul, cybernetic modules hacked by Russian darknet veterans who now lived in underground bunkers powered by car batteries and rage. They had parts. What they didn't have was time. The Aurochs weren't going to give them a break. Zokaral's next wave was on the move. 10 ships, each larger than Manhattan, equipped with planet burrowers, devices designed to crack a world's crust and hollow it from the inside out. Earth had weeks, maybe less. So Voss did what he always did when pushed to the edge. He broke the rules. He mobilized every resistance cell across the globe, not for defense, but for parts. Every surviving technician, hacker, builder, and rogue scientist was summoned to Colorado. And in the darkness of an old NORAD hangar, Beneath a mountain choking on dust and grief, humanity began to build something monstrous. They called it Leviathan. It was ugly, patchwork, screaming with radiation. Its core pulsed with unstable Orax plasma. Its wings were jagged remnants of shot-down fighters, its thrusters cannibalized from an old Mars mission. It shouldn't have flown, but it did. And when it powered on for the first time, the mountain shook. Alina stood before it, her eyes reflecting the crackling energy of the beast she'd helped bring to life. Voss placed a hand on her shoulder, for the first time looking at her not as a survivor, but as a leader. "You were right," he said. "It's time we took the fight to them." And above them, in the vast black beyond Earth's wounded sky, the Empire waited. Unaware that the humans had built a war machine out of junk, anger, and vengeance, and it was coming for them. The day Leviathan left Earth's atmosphere, the sky screamed. Not because of the ship's engines, though they tore through the clouds like a god ripping open the sky, but because of what it meant. For the first time since the Orax arrived, Earth wasn't just reacting. It was reaching. Humanity wasn't running anymore. It was chasing. The ship roared into orbit like a meteor in reverse. Inside, everything was rattling, creaking, threatening to tear itself apart. It wasn't designed for comfort or elegance. It was barely designed at all, but it held together, just barely, driven by sheer will and a core reactor that could wipe out a continent if it destabilized. Captain Voss stood strapped into the command chair, gripping the armrests with white knuckles. Alina was to his right, coordinating the tech crew. Most of them barely older than her, all of them chosen not for training but for the sheer number of alien systems they had hacked, rebuilt, or detonated. Below them, Earth became a shrinking marble, wrapped in soot and flame. Voss stared at it, jaw clenched. "We don't come back until it's safe to come back," he said. They were heading to one of the Arax refueling stations, the smallest one still orbiting Neptune's shadow, where the Dominion warships would dock to recharge before entering Earth's orbit. Their plan? Hijack the base, upload a virus, jam every transmission between the command fleet and their AI logistics chain. Paralyze the Dominion long enough to create chaos. It was insane. But that's what humans had become. The closer they got to the station, the more bizarre the space around them became. Orax territory distorted gravity. Soundless electrical storms crawled across the void like spiders. Even time itself felt wrong. Seconds stretched, twisted. The ship's clocks drifted out of sync. One of the crewmen bled from the nose and passed out. They tied him to a bulkhead and moved on. Alina sat at the terminal, trying to decrypt the Orax docking frequency. "These signals, they're not linear," she muttered. "They're alive." "What do you mean alive?" Voss asked. "I mean, they adapt. Every time I crack one pattern, it changes like it knows." "Then beat it faster." She didn't respond. Her fingers were already dancing across the keys, rerouting through Earthside servers still online, looping signals through abandoned AI cores, trying to stay ahead of a code that wasn't just advanced, it was hunting her back. Then something pinged. The station was in view. A pale black ring spinning in the darkness, with teeth like a circular saw and tendrils of glowing blue energy curling off its sides. It didn't look like a base. It looked like a mouth. "Weapons online," Voss barked. "Only one cannon functioning," Sal O'Reilly's voice crackled from the lower deck. "And it overheats after 2 shots. That's one more than we had yesterday." The closer they got, the more the ship groaned. It was like Leviathan itself wanted to turn back. Systems blinked red, oxygen levels dropped, heat shields fluctuated. The stolen alien power core screamed with instability. "Distance to target 6,000 kilometers," Alina whispered. Then the Aurochs noticed. Energy spikes lit up across the station. It had no visible guns, Aurochs tech never did, but strange tendrils of light began reaching toward Leviathan, like it was being scanned, dissected, judged. A voice echoed inside their heads, not over speakers, not in any language. It entered them. Curious construct, unrecognized aggression, stand down, return to primitive orbit. You will be preserved. Voss spat onto the deck. We've heard that line before. He turned to Alina. Light 'em up! The single plasma cannon charged, screeched, and fired. A beam of white-hot energy lanced through the void and struck the station's outer ring. It didn't explode. It didn't even react. Instead, the beam was absorbed, swallowed. Did it eat the shot? Sal gasped. Alina froze. Voss, we're in trouble. Big trouble. Suddenly the station grew. Its outer shell unfolded like some kind of flower, revealing that it wasn't just a station. It was alive. A biomechanical creature engineered to masquerade as infrastructure. Its tendrils weren't tools. They were limbs. Get us out of here, someone screamed. Too late. The tendrils whipped forward and wrapped around Leviathan, dragging the ship toward its spinning core like prey toward a waiting mouth. Alina gritted her teeth and slammed her fists on the terminal. I need 30 seconds to upload the virus. You've got 15, Voss growled. The ship shook violently. Sparks rained down. Half the monitors died. The pilot slumped in his seat, blood trickling from his ears. Voss stood, unstrapped himself, and limped toward the fusion core. Get her the time. I'll buy it. Don't you dare, Alina shouted. He didn't listen. He tore the emergency override from the wall, exposing the unstable Aurochs core, glowing like a miniature sun. He cranked the failsafe dial to maximum. The core surged. Voss, that'll blow us all. It'll blow us, he said, or them. The ship pulsed with power. Alina screamed at the code, fingers flying, the virus inches from completion. Then, upload complete. Voss hit the manual trigger. A surge of corrupted code burst out of Leviathan like a shockwave. It slammed into the station's systems, disrupting neural connections, sending feedback loops through the living metal. The creature shuddered, screeched. Its grip loosened. Leviathan kicked free, and the Aurochs station began to disintegrate, folding in on itself, burning from the inside out. Alina collapsed. Voss fell beside her, coughing, burned, but alive. For now. But the message was sent. The virus was in their network. And in the heart of the Dominion's communication system, something began to break. In the silence that followed the explosion, there was no victory, just static. Leviathan drifted. Systems flickered. Fires hissed from broken vents. Half the crew was unconscious or worse. The fusion core had stabilized, barely, but Voss lay on the floor beside it, his arms scorched and lips cracked from the blast wave. Alina crawled to him, fingers trembling as she checked his pulse. It was there. Weak, but there. Hang on, old man, she muttered, voice dry as ash. You don't get to die after pulling that off. Through the cracked viewport, the Aurochs station twisted in slow, silent death. The virus hadn't just infected the creature, it had spread. Invisible tendrils of corrupted code now pulsed outward, carried by the Dominion's own network. Every transmission, every command signal they sent was now riding a wave of earthborn corruption. The message was simple. We're not prey. We're the storm. But that wasn't the end. That was the warning. Far across the stars, on a moon cloaked in obsidian mist, High Commander Zokarl stood before a writhing map of his dominion. Thousands of systems, billions of subjugated species, his empire etched into the fabric of the cosmos. Until now. He stared at the corrupted feed, the station's last moments playing back in fragmented bursts. The human ship. The strange energy pulse. The station's scream as it died. An aide approached, voice quivering. The signal has reached over 32% of our fleet. Some ships are non-responsive. Others report hallucinations in the command AI. A few have gone dark entirely. Jokeral didn't blink. His face, cold and angular, cracked only slightly at the edges. A twitch, barely perceptible. But it was there. Fear. "Bring me the null priests," he ordered, "and deploy the vanguard. Earth dies now." Back aboard Leviathan, Alina's fingers danced through the hollow projections, checking the virus's progress. The code was doing more than she hoped. It was evolving. Every Orax system it touched, it learned from, rewrote, bent their intelligence into knots of contradiction and panic. "They thought their minds were perfect," she whispered. "Turns out a little chaos is all it takes." Behind her, Voss stirred, groaned. "You alive?" she asked. "Barely." He sat up slowly, his voice hoarse. "Did it work?" "Oh, it worked. You melted a living station and set half their damn fleet on fire." He grinned, weak but wicked. "Told you we'd steal the sky." But there was no time to savor it. A warning flashed. Brutal, urgent, unmistakable. Something massive had entered their sensor range. Alina's heart dropped. "Voss, we've got company." The Dominion hadn't wasted time. A new ship was inbound. No, not a ship. A colossus, at least 20 times the size of Leviathan, shaped like a scythe dragging across reality, blacker than the void, with red slits pulsing across its hull like breathing scars. "The Vanguard," Voss murmured. "I've heard whispers. Flagships for extermination. No assimilation, no subjugation, just erasure." "ETA 20 minutes, Sal's voice crackled from below deck. "Hull's barely holding. Weapons are toast. If we get hit once, we're stardust." Voss pushed himself upright. "Then we don't let them fire." "What?" "We board them." Alina blinked. "You've lost your mind." "Number, I've found it. They think they know humans. They think we fear death. But death's been chasing us since the first club hit the first skull. We don't fear it. We use it." He limped to the nav panel. "Plot a direct course. We hit them head on." "That's suicide." "No," he said. "It's a message." Alina hesitated. But then she saw it. That same look in his eyes from the night Earth fell. The look that said, "If we're going down, we're taking hell with us." So she nodded. They angled Leviathan toward the incoming vanguard, and every crew member left alive, strapped in, knowing what this meant. Back on Earth, the virus continued to spread. Back in the Dominion, systems collapsed. AIs short-circuited, and lower caste species whispered of rebellion. The Empire had cracked. And now, a single human war machine, stitched together from scrap and desperation, flew toward their deadliest weapon with one goal: break the unbreakable. As Leviathan closed the distance, Voss gave his final command. "Open the bay doors." Alina hit the switch. Below them, humanity's last secret unfolded, dozens of pods built from scavenged cryotech and fitted with fusion drills, loaded with explosives, each one carrying a rebel, an outcast, or a fighter with nothing left to lose, each one willing to die to make a point. They launched, a swarm of human fury, streaking through the dark toward the Empire's greatest beast. The pods hit like thunder. Dozens of them tore into the black hull of the Dominion Vanguard, puncturing its armor with brutal precision. Fusion drills screamed as they chewed through layers of living metal and synthetic bone. Explosions bloomed along the outer shell, blinding flashes against the void. Inside the monstrous vessel, alarms blared in a language meant to be heard through bone rather than ears. Organic lights pulsed in panic. The ship was alive, reacting like a wounded beast, shifting walls, sealing corridors, deploying defense drones that looked more like nightmares than machines. But the humans were already inside. From the pods came the damned, rebels, prisoners, ex-soldiers, people the world had discarded. Voss hadn't brought an army. He'd brought vengeance. Alina was one of the first out, pulse rifle in hand, breath fogging inside her cracked helmet. The corridor they landed in was slick with a fleshy sheen, dimly lit by bioluminescent veins that pulsed like a heartbeat. She gagged at the stench. It smelled like copper and rotting meat. Whatever this ship was, it wasn't metal and wire. It was grown. Behind her, Sal O'Reilly came limping out, dragging a railgun fashioned from stolen Orax tech. "This place is a damn horror show." "No time for awe," Alina said, checking her tracker. "Voss said hit the neural core. Everything else is noise." The Dominion ship began its counterattack. Panels opened in the walls like gills, releasing vapor and shrieking drones with spindly limbs and rotating mouths. They didn't shoot bullets. They screamed. Sonic pulses meant to rupture brains. But the humans had been screaming inside for too long. Alina dropped to a knee and fired. The pulse rifle howled, sending blue bolts through one of the drones. It crumpled into twitching parts. Sal lobbed a makeshift EMP grenade, knocking out half the corridor's lights and sending more drones crashing into the walls. All around the ship, other pods had breached. Small skirmishes turned into full-on war zones. Human teams moved like wolves, fast, precise, merciless. They didn't fight like an army. They fought like survivors. Inside the command center of the Vanguard, High Commander Joe Corral watched through its internal sensors. For the first time in centuries, he did not feel superior. He felt doubt. "They are not logical," he hissed. "They do not seek surrender. They are chaos incarnate." The Null priests, cloaked in black flame, whispered in his mind. "They carry death like fire. They cannot be reasoned with, only consumed." Joe Corral bared his fangs. "Then consume them." The ship's neural core began to pulse harder, generating gravitational shifts meant to crush intruders. The walls bent space, disorienting human senses. Some fighters vomited, fell, passed out. Others pressed on, dragging comrades by the arms. Alina's team made it deeper. The walls grew darker, the light more intense. And then they saw it, the brain. Not metaphorically, literally. The Dominion neural core sat at the center of the ship, suspended in a vat of translucent fluid, connected to the ship's entire structure through cables and tissue. It pulsed, oozing thoughts and orders in waves of psychic force. Around it, protective tendrils stirred, massive coils of living armor ready to strike. Alina stared at it, then opened the satchel at her side. Inside were 24 canisters, nanite bombs. "Voss didn't bring us to win," she whispered to herself. "He brought us to infect." She snapped the canisters into the panel around the brain. Each one lit up, pulsing blue, primed. The virus inside wasn't just data. It was encoded emotion, memory. Human trauma turned into corruption, fear, loss, rage, packaged into a language only machines could understand. And fear, that's what the Dominion couldn't process. She slammed the final trigger just as one of the massive tendrils shot toward her. It didn't make it. The virus exploded inward, into the mind of the ship. Not a blast of fire, but of thought. An ocean of screaming human memory poured into an alien consciousness built on cold control and perfection. The Vanguard convulsed. Across its decks, lights went white, then red, then dark. Every AI connected to the core, every command system, every coordination link began to malfunction. Some burned out entirely, others rebooted, screaming. In space, Leviathan, still drifting, began transmitting the same signal, now amplified by the corrupted Vanguard itself. and across the Dominion network, it spread like wildfire. Ships stopped mid-flight. Orders reversed. Commanders began questioning protocols that had never been questioned in thousands of years. Alina collapsed beside the vat. The tendril fell still beside her, twitching. Sal crouched next to her, bleeding from a gash in his scalp. "Did we do it?" he asked. She looked up, eyes barely open. "We didn't win." "What then?" "We made them afraid." And across the stars, in thousands of Dominion warships, the first spark of something terrible ignited. Doubt. The Dominion was unraveling. From the heart of the Vanguard to the cold outer reaches of its empire, cracks split the once unshakable order. Command ships no longer responded in sync. Scout vessels vanished without explanation. Entire battalions turned inward, confused by foreign impulses crawling through their systems, ghost signals, corrupted protocols, strange whispers in the dark of space. It wasn't just a virus anymore. It was an infection of humanity, of all its terrible beauty. Emotion, rage, rebellion, pain as memory, grief as weapon, and fear. The Dominion had never known it, not like this. On board the Vanguard, chaos reigned. Emergency lights flickered red and purple as the ship groaned in its death throes. Bulkheads folded in on themselves. Defense drones attacked anything that moved, including each other. The ship's own AI screamed in overlapping languages, some mechanical, others painfully human. Somewhere deep within its corrupted neural core, a voice muttered, again and again, "I remember falling. I remember burning. I remember Earth." Voss stumbled down the broken corridor, shoulder torn open by shrapnel, rifle hanging from one hand. He found Alina where she'd fallen near the core, barely conscious, her skin pale and stained with blood. He knelt beside her, pressing 2 fingers to her neck. Still alive. He breathed out, then looked up at the ruined neural tank. The Dominion's mind was dying, but slowly. It was still dangerous, still capable of fighting back. They didn't have long. Sal limped over, dragging 2 other fighters behind him, both wounded, one unconscious. "Everyone's falling back," he said. "The ship's about to collapse inward. Some kind of controlled implosion. We gotta go." "We finish what we started," Voss growled. Sal shook his head. "This place is a tomb, Voss. You want to send a message? Great, we've sent it, but no one's gonna hear it if we die here." Voss clenched his jaw. His whole life had been this: resistance, sacrifice, one breath away from oblivion. But this time he knew Sal was right. The virus had spread. The damage was done. He pulled Alina onto his shoulder, groaning under the weight. "Get to the pods." Together, limping, coughing, bleeding, they made their way back through the dying beast. Drones screamed through the air above them. Organic cables whipped like tentacles, reacting blindly to foreign signals. The ship was trying to decide if it was still alive or already dead. Voss didn't wait to find out. At the pod bay, 2 remaining dropships waited, barely functional, flickering with sparks. Other human fighters had made it too, fewer than 20. Out of the dozens who'd boarded, most were gone. Some killed by Dominion weapons, others by the ship itself. Some had stayed behind to hold choke points, to buy minutes for the others to escape. Their sacrifice was unspoken, but felt in every broken breath. Voss threw Alina into the nearest dropcraft, then turned back for Sal, helping him up as alarms grew deafening around them. The ship was collapsing. Literally. Floor plates bent. Gravity reversed. Strange pressure formed in the air, like the whole place was sinking into itself. They slammed the hatch just as the bay ceiling caved inward. Engines roared. The dropcraft launched into the void, tearing away from the imploding Vanguard. Behind them, the Colossus folded in on itself. Not a simple explosion, but a violent rupture of logic. Geometry twisted. Light turned backward. In its final death cry, the ship broadcast a scream so loud it reached across subspace channels. "We remember Earth!" On board the drop craft, silence returned slowly. Sal slumped into a seat, holding a compress to his chest. "We made it." Voss sat beside Alina, who stirred awake, eyes fluttering. "Did we die?" she murmured. "No," he said. "But they did." For a long moment, no one said anything. Then a voice crackled through the ship's comms. "This is Resistance Command. We read your signal. Confirmation code, last flame. Is anyone alive out there?" Voss leaned forward, pressing the comm. "This is Captain Elias Voss. Leviathan crew reporting in. Mission succeeded. Vanguard is destroyed." A pause. Then static cleared. "Copy that, Captain. You lit the fire. It's spreading." He sat back, eyes hollow but fierce, because Earth had struck back. And now the Dominion was starting to break. Not with an army, but with an idea. They called it the fracture. Within a standard Dominion cycle, over 72 warships decommissioned themselves. Entire planetary governors fell silent, refusing central directives. The Null priests, those ancient psychic shepherds of Dominion thought, began to self-immolate, consumed by conflicting streams of emotion they couldn't parse. A whisper spread through the Empire like cancer. "We remember Earth." It wasn't just a message. It was a disease of thought. Wherever the corrupted signal went, Dominion logic unraveled. Some systems collapsed into infighting, others simply shut down, as if their programming preferred death over doubt. And all across the network, strange behaviors emerged. Some drones stopped executing prisoners. Some ships refused to fire. A few commanders began questioning orders aloud, suffering seizures moments later, as if the Dominion itself tried to punish heresy from within. But it was too late. Voss, Alina, and what remained of the Leviathan's team were brought back to a resistance stronghold in the asteroid belt near Jupiter. It was no paradise. Steel corridors, recycled air, scars of too many battles. But it was home. Alina recovered slowly, her nerves damaged from proximity to the neural blast. Her left hand shook when she tried to hold a cup of water, but her voice stayed strong. "I didn't think it would feel like this," she whispered to Voss as they sat in the infirmary. "I thought we'd celebrate, laugh, dance. But I just feel hollow." "We didn't win," Voss said, staring at the metal floor. "We just wounded something old, something huge. It'll bleed a while, then it'll choose." "Choose what?" He looked at her, his eyes darker than ever. "Whether to become something new, or to destroy everything we ever touched." Across the stars, the Resistance listened to the silence of their enemy. For the first time, no counterattack came, no immediate retaliation, no glassing of Earth, no planetary extinction protocol, just silence and whispers. Hundreds of Dominion colonies broadcast erratic, desperate messages. Some asked for guidance, others begged for mercy. One signal, intercepted from a Dominion outpost near the Trinary Rift, simply repeated a single line. "They showed us what it means to break." Back on Earth, cities long buried beneath rubble began to rebuild. Skies once black with ash saw sun again. People came out of bunkers and silos, not because they were safe, but because they felt something different in the air. Hope. The Resistance began organizing, shaky alliances forming between warlords, old governments, and scattered survivors. They called it the Second Dawn. Voss was offered a seat on the Central Council. He declined. He stayed in orbit aboard a new ship, Reckoner, with a skeleton crew, including Sal and Alina. We're not done, he told them. This was just the first domino. They weren't hunting victory now. They were hunting answers. Where had the Dominion come from? What did they want beyond conquest? And most terrifying of all, what was waking up in the void now that their dominion was breaking? Because sometimes, when power falls, worse things crawl up through the cracks. On their 10th patrol day beyond Saturn, Reckoner picked up a signal. Not Dominion, not human. Older, colder. Voss listened, then leaned back in his seat. They're watching us. Alina stiffened. Who? He turned to her, that familiar fire in his eyes once more. Something older than the Dominion. Maybe they ruled before. Maybe they just waited. But they know what we did. She looked at the signal trace. Frequencies warped like space had twisted just to speak it. Not a language, a warning. You taught them fear, but you also taught them to dream. Voss exhaled. Let's see what happens when empires start dreaming nightmares.